to another edition of the Hispanic Patriot, a weekly podcast broadcast live from a secret, undisclosed location deep behind enemy lines in Denver, Colorado. Here we speak the truth and nothing but the truth, so help us God. And now, without further ado, here is the host of the Hispanic Patriot, Hugo Chavez Ray.
Well, hello, everyone. Good to be back after a hiatus. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving, and hopefully you had plenty to be grateful for. We live in a very highly octaned world right now, and we know a lot of things are going on. Not everything is good news, but we always have to focus on the good news so that we can be positive. We want to talk about the things that are taking place around the country and around the world, and for that purpose, we are here to disseminate information, factual information to you, so that you can take that and disseminate it yourself among your circle of influence. So, welcome to another edition of the Hispanic Patriot. We're coming up on the Christmas season now. We're officially in the Christmas season following Thanksgiving. So I want to be the first one to say Merry Christmas to you. And we're going to be talking a lot more about that as we go along. But this is one of my favorite times of the year. Christmas is very special to me. I feel it's probably one of the best times of the year for the country, for the world, because it brings feelings of joy, peace, love, and of course, focusing on the real reason for the season, which is the birth of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So thank you for tuning in tonight. We have a very important guest tonight that's going to be talking about a very hot topic, and that is transgenderism in the public schools. This is a topic that has to be spread far and wide, and people need to be informed, especially parents with children in public schools now, anywhere from K through 12. You need to be aware of what's going on in the public schools, and it's not all good news. But the good news is that you can get involved and do something about it and fight against this horrendous agenda that's being pushed by the left. We're going to learn some very important topics or important issues about the topic tonight. And our guest is Ivy Liu, someone who we have had on before, former school board member in Colorado Springs. But she is a strong activist and a strong voice fighting against this horrendous agenda in the public schools. So we want to bring her on so we can have a lot of time to talk about this topic tonight. So, Peter, let's go ahead and bring Ivy in, and we'll introduce her to the audience.
All right.
Hello, Ivy.
Hello, how are you guys? So great to see you again.
Doing great.
You too, Ivy. It's always a pleasure seeing your beautiful smiling face.
You too.
You're like a ray of sunshine. I love it.
Well,
thank you.
We, I've had some issues lately. My 98-year-old mom in Peru has just fought off a second bout of pneumonia in the last couple months, and so she's been going through a rough patch. And I'm going to be taking a trip down to Peru on the 14th of December to spend Christmas down there with her. So it's and a family, of course. I have a lot of family down there. Wow. So it's going to be a great Christmas, great time to be with family. We wanted to bring you on because I found out about your involvement in this issue of transgenderism in the public schools. Mm-hmm. And so I want to open this up by introducing you and to the audience. And I'll give you a couple minutes to introduce yourself and give us a little background about what you're doing with this topic and why you're involved in it. So go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you, Hugo. Thank you, Peter. So I am involved in it because I don't see any other option. They're coming after our children, as they are in every other aspect of education. Now, we talked about this last time in depth. This is not an isolated occurrence, this transgender crisis we're having. It is related to everything else they are doing to our children. We talked about SEL, social emotional learning, that is indoctrinating our kids into social justice warriors, being more concerned about social issues than learning how to read and write. Children are failing across the country, but especially here in our state, where they're not reading and writing at the levels that anywhere close to the levels they used to. They're failing their academics, yet they're becoming social justice warrior experts. And so this is not isolated. This transgenderism is just another prong of this insidious attack, multifaceted attack on our children. We talked about, dumbing down of our kids through this John Dewey philosophy of, dumbing down our kids. Social emotional learning programs are destroying our kids in terms of teaching them how to think differently from the way they have been traditionally educated. They're teaching our kids to be conformists, lacking critical thinking skills, rational thinking. They're teaching our kids to crave for group acceptance. Peter, we and I talked about that last time, this group think, this herd mentality. They are teaching our kids to be anywhere from, but becoming the confident, self-confident, and self-actualized adults that education was supposed to bring into their lives. Confidence level is down, other than by gaining lavish praise through people external of them instead of seeking internal confidence that comes from achievement, academic achievement, personal achievement, and so on. So all of this is coming into our education system, and I'm not seeing enough educators being aware of these problems, and or if they're aware, they're not doing something about it. So all of this leads to the discussion then on transgender crisis that we're having. It is in epidemic proportions. Do you have any questions for me?
I do. Give us a little bit of how we come from indoctrination through SEL to this transgender crisis. What is it that you feel is the I guess the game plan for that, for the left in this particular area?
Well, okay, so indoctrination is just basically transforming the way our kids were raised traditionally, especially in America, where we're used to all the freedoms and so on. So this is just another way of transforming our kids, except in the case of transgenderism, as is the case of the other indoctrination methods, it is to basically destroy the identity of our children. Instead of the traditional identity of finding confidence, like as I said, in achievement, in growing and learning, and just becoming good at life through the skills that are taught both at home and in the schools, they're destroying our kids by teaching them anything but that. Well, gender dysphoria is what transgenderism is, and gender dysphoria is traditionally defined as a strong feeling of incongruence between their physical body and the gender with which they identify. This is how the scientists define gender dysphoria. Well, guess what? Gender dysphoria actually hits about 0.01%. If you can imagine, that's 1 in 10,000 of our general population that is biologically based. In other words, everything else you're hearing then with this transgender craze is man-made. Let me explain how that's happening. Gender dysphoria typically, like as I said, hits 0.01% of the population, and it's typically boys that thinks they're girls, but it happens at a very young age, and about 50 to 70% of them grow out of it by going through puberty, according to Abigail Schreier. This transgender crisis is being dragged into our awareness, and it's being manufactured by activists. It's very similar to the CRT activists who created social chaos and division through race. They are now creating social chaos and division through gender. The difference is our girls are being destroyed permanently. They are being mutilated permanently. So who are these transgender activists? Who are they targeting? The girls. Typically, you're hearing now that, oh, 4 or 5 of the girls in a particular classroom are identifying as boys.
Yeah. Right.
Okay,
Go
that
ahead.
does, go ahead.
How does
No, I was just gonna say that's what J.K. Rowling was talking about. They say it's genetic, right? You're born with this, and she says, well, then how come groups of teenage girls, entire groups of teenage girls, are all of a sudden coming together and then going to their parents saying, "Hey, we're trans." I mean, it's clearly a social
Contagion.
right. Yeah, I was about to say that. I didn't want to sound too too
so how,
insensitive.
how does it come about? What do they do in the classroom per se to introduce the topic? Well, I mean, are there certain classes that they're introducing this topic in, or are they just in general finding willing teachers that are willing to
Right.
introduce this?
Well, it happens all kinds of ways. And let me start by explaining how historically, and for as long as mankind have existed, we've always had a small segment of our population, mostly girls, who suffer from chemical imbalances, mental illness. Um, a lot of it could be due to mental. I'm sorry, chemical imbalances. Others could just be the disposition with which they were born. But there's always been a segment of population that suffers, that struggle with the mental and emotional ailments, the depression, the anxiety, the self-harm. There's always been that population of girls, and those girls, my gosh, they need all of our tender care and love and treatment. These girls have become the target of these unconscionable, evil activists. And what they have done is they target these girls either through social media, like you're talking about, and maybe classes. I don't want to say that because I've only heard of cases where that happened. Clubs, after school clubs, and I'll tell you about a movie called The Art Club by Erin Lee out of Loveland, Colorado. She talks about the story of how her daughter got pushed into the transgender crisis through an art club. I'm not accusing teachers out there of doing that, but it is happening. And then, of course, kids that don't belong, they don't have friends, they sit at home and sit on a computer. And what do? They get on social media, they get on YouTube. And that's where they're finding a lot of the influence. That's where a lot of the activists are lurking and drawing girls in. And it's like a gang. It's like a gang initiation. They draw them in by offering them immediate gratification, social acceptance, love bombing, offering them a sense of safety, all of the tools that they use to draw young people into gangs, young people that don't have a sense of belonging anywhere. So it is very insidious, very evil how they are targeting this segment of population, and that's how they're being drawn in. And of course, a lot of word of mouth. And so, Peter, you were saying, all of a sudden, 4 or 5 girls out of a single classroom are identifying as boys. Well, biology doesn't happen that way, as you know. So that we're looking at social contagion. We're looking at what happened a couple of decades ago with bulimia and anorexia, where, oh, I feel your pain. Oh, you're anorexic. Oh, maybe so am I. And so that is just a tendency of young women who are in pain, and they're sharing their pain. And this is what's happening. And like I said, then these horrific activists are targeting that and using that to destroy these girls. And if I may, I want to talk about the journey of a transgender girl, unless you have some questions.
Well, I kind of wanted to chime in a little bit about what you think about the movement that we've been hearing about drag queens targeting, very young children. I've never understood what the fascination is for these people to want to read to young children in full drag. There can only be one agenda there, and I have gay friends who have told me the same thing, that said, Hugo, this is not what it's about being gay, and they vehemently oppose that type of introduction to that type of lifestyle at 5 and 6 years old. I mean, what business is it of these people to try to reach these children at such a young age? And it appalls me that there are actually parents who don't think there's anything wrong with this.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't fathom that. I mean, I don't understand what's wrong with these people that they think, oh, okay, my 5 or 6 year old can sit there and watch a drag queen read to them in full drag and parade around, and in some cases I've heard perform lewd and lascivious acts in front of these young children. How can you come to any other conclusion that these people are just basically trying to target these children? To indoctrinate them into believing that this is some sort of normal lifestyle and that it's okay, and and then you got all these books that they've put into the libraries. I have to believe that it's all tied together. So
they are, but just in different directions. And I have to admit, I haven't studied the drag queens. I'm not sure if I want to, but I think it's a different concept here. Drag queens, a lot of them simply want to dress like a woman. Okay. Uh-huh. And for some people, that's all they want to do. The one we're seeing and hearing about are the extremists that are trying to normalize evil in the eyes of young, innocent children who should not be knowing about and seeing any of this. Right. Just a side point there. All of this is coming in everywhere, right? It's through TV, through video games, through classes, through math, through reading. Some of this is seeping in. I watch my grandkids very carefully, some of the things they do, and so does my daughter and son-in-law. But I was babysitting one day, and they were dancing to this one video, right? And I was just kind of keeping an eye and, thinking they're so cute dancing. And then I looked up on the screen, and actually it took me a few minutes to go, oh my gosh, the person dancing on this video is a drag queen. She was dressed as a drag queen, bright red lipstick, big hair. And I have, it's a double take, and I even questioned myself, oh, am I being overly sensitive? And I looked at it again, and I said, switch characters. Well, all the rest of the characters, the dancing figures, were normal except for this one, and they snuck this one in. And so even in kids' videos where it's supposed to be a fun activity, they're sneaking this in. They are normalizing evil. I mean, reading to them is bad enough, but you're right. I have seen videos of lewd gestures and movements but what I really want to get on the case of is the moms that bring them there. What is wrong with you? And I'm going to be very tough on these parents. What is wrong with you that you would expose your kids to such horrible concepts that is way outside of what you should be raising your kids with? But that is a different topic. I don't think it's related to transgender. Some of these cross-dressers may be transgender. I don't know. But I think that while it is evil, it is not something we want our children to be exposed to. I don't know that has or I need to look into how this is related to transgender. It is not one of my topics today.
So what is
it's not there because drag queens aren't considered trans. They're gay men that dress as women, and that's what they would tell you. You know, it's
Right.
they are there's a line there. It's all under the greater umbrella of LGBTQ plus, but
Right.
yeah, they are two different subjects, definitely.
So
I don't understand. You know, we'll get more into the drag thing another time, but yeah.
who are the transgender activists, and what are they targeting and why?
Well, I don't
we know
know.
why.
I
We
mean,
know the why, I think.
we know the why. I don't know who they are. For all we know, they're just a bunch of CRT people who change the T-shirts, right? Their intent is to create chaos. I mean, ultimately, they don't seem to care who they hurt, how they hurt, and how much they hurt the targets. In the end, it is to create chaos, confusion. When you have a bunch of kids and a huge population of kids that are chaotic, they are living in chaos, confusion, self-doubt. Well, guess what? That is a perfect country for an enemy to attack.
Right.
It's the same basis why they had all the BLM kids, the Antifa kids. They target the social misfits, and that's not meant to be a name call. It is the kids that don't belong, that don't fit in. And like a typical gang recruitment, they target these kids to go and do these horrible things as a part of being a part of the family.
Yeah.
And this transgenderism is part of the same thing, is to target in this case girls who are trying to find some desperate sense of belonging, of love, of acceptance. And that's what these love bombing groups are about. They welcome them in, and and this is not based on just something I read. It is based on testimonies of kids that have gone through this transition, this actually went through the chemical, the testosterone and all of that. And they talk about their experiences. There are many of these videos online that parents probably should watch, so they know what actually happens when these kids are drawn into these evil centers of influence.
Well,
Yeah, there's
we have
one there's called DETRANS on PragerU, and we can watch some of that if you guys want. Yeah. I did pull up your gender confusion or video on Epoch Times, so you let me know if you want to get into this at all. But yeah, it's tragic, and I do want to preface something, to say that many people in the LGBTQ community, like just many gay men or gay women, are very opposed to this indoctrination as well, and this perversion. Now, it's kind of like not every Democrat is on board with what Joe Biden and his regime are trying to do. Many are fighting against it. The same with many gay people that are very much opposed to, like, they're saying, hey, look, this needs to be for adults only, And so I just wanted to preface, like, it's, we got this umbrella here, right? But there's this, it's always the really loud minority that paints this picture for the whole community. And it's not the whole LGBTQ community, but it is a very strong and loud, nefarious agenda that is being pushed. And
I'm going to bet, I don't have a percentage, that the majority of these loud, obnoxious, vocal, offensive activists are not anywhere near transgender or LGBTQ. They are just like the CRT activists. Mm-hmm. They are there to cause harm and chaos. Right. And I truly believe that. I don't have a percentage on it, but in fact, a study done by Abigail Schreier shows that the majority of the real transgender people are living quiet lives. They have a productive lives. They're working a job. They are not doing this.
Yeah. There's a really good YouTuber called Blair White. She's a trans woman. She transitioned, and she dealt with gender dysphoria and all that. And, that whole story, she's very opposed to this whole thing. And I've learned a lot by watching her YouTube channel. It's called the Blair White Project.
Okay. I'll try to look that up. But so basically, how are they destroying our children? Here's the journey. So you have kids that don't feel like they belong. They hate themselves for a whole host of reasons that I mentioned earlier, chemical, mental, and diseases, and so on. So once they are brought in, then the first thing they do is to be convinced that if you just stopped, if you just take hormones, and you'll become the boy that you want to be. And so the first step, almost all of these young ladies that are victims of this, this lie, is they start taking hormone blockers. Well, they're not told that the hormone blockers that you use is called Lupron, which is a drug that's not authorized by FDA, and it is used to on sex offenders, right? So these hormone blockers are being administered to young kids. I saw young as 10, 12. We're hearing cases of that. All the way through the early 20s, they start off on these hormone blockers, and it's not FDA approved. Well, if they're young and they start on these blockers, well, guess what happens? It not only does it arrest sex development, which these kids think that's what they want. It affects everything else: your brain development, your bone density, sexual maturation of whichever gender you are, but typically the gender you're born with. It inhibits all of that, and these things are not isolated. When you're affecting these things, because it's affecting your pituitary gland, everything else is affected. It is going to put you into depression if you weren't in depression before. It gives people blood clots and infertility. Most of these detransitioners, which are, you mentioned, Peter, you mentioned detransitioners. That's a new term that's been coined. These are the kids that went through the transition of becoming boys, and it's mostly girls that become boys, that have regrets, usually too late. By this time, they have been treated with chemicals with irreversible damage, and they have to cut off body parts, many of them. These are the kids that go through regret and go, wait, I am a girl. But by now they have a voice like a man. They don't have parts anymore because it's been suppressed by these chemicals. They may be missing body parts. Many women have gone through what they call top surgery, which is removal of the breast. And then, of course, boys have other surgeries that are irreversible. So these are called detransitioners, and there's tons of videos on them too. And it is tragic. If you want to have a good, nice cry about something, just watch these videos. It is sad. It is tragic. And I want to scream at the top of my lungs, where were the parents?
Right.
Where were the adults? Where were the people that they're supposed to watch out for our kids? Well, obviously, at some point they were missing. Where they?
Well, I have to question the integrity of the surgeons that are doing this too.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
that's a whole nother topic. I mean, what kind of doctor, and I put doctors in quotes,
yeah.
These are butchers. These are people that are akin to Dr. Frankenstein trying to create monsters out of different body and individuals. I mean,
There's money.
If there were no, there's money. There's money somewhere.
Hippocrates would be rolling over in his grave.
Right?
The Hippocratic Oath, do no harm. Read the Hippocratic Oath. See what it says.
No, I mean, when there's money involved, and I've heard all different amounts, like $40,000 per surgery is what they get. And like in the horrific state of California, where Peter, you and I came from, they are offering girls, hey, if you do it within this time frame, it's free. Well, free for them. So these girls are jumping at it, right? Well, we get it free now if we do it by a certain age.
You can go. Yeah, you can go into gender affirming clinic. A minor can go into gender affirming clinics today, tomorrow,
and start treatment.
Hormone puberty blockers without any parental consent. I mean, in fact, that's when you watch DETRANS on PragerU. There's firsthand testimonies of detransitioners who, within the same day they go in, they were diagnosed, gender dysphoria. You need to transition, otherwise. And the parents are told your kid's going to kill themselves, so it's better to have a trans kid, a live trans kid than a dead, a dead son or whatever.
Better to have a live son than a dead daughter.
And a lot, right, exactly. And many, and I believe, like, I don't think all the doctors are nefarious. I just think it's a brainwashing. It is truly a brainwashing. And, you know, I don't know how they can get to arrive at these places to think it's okay to perform these surgeries on kids. But that's the world we live in, where some physicians actually think they are saving lives by doing this. It's crazy.
Maybe that, but like I said, we're talking big monies involved, and you have to know who is funding it and why, and that I don't know the answers to. I can only guess, right? But it's a multi-billion-dollar business.
Yeah, we can justify a lot of bloodshed, you know, when our bank accounts are growing. It's easy to do.
It's pure evil. That's all it is.
Evil. We went from one sex clinic in 2007 to 300, over 300 today. That's 13 years later. Wait, how many years is that? 17 years later. It's a 3,000% increase.
I heard someone make a statement that is really glaring, and that is China is teaching their children mathematics, calculus, rocket science, and we're teaching our children how to convert from one sex to another. That's a big contrast of why there's such a low pool available now for our military. Our military is depleted thanks to Joe Biden. And the pool from which our military can be rebuilt is horrendous. I mean, it's really almost non-existent between all this indoctrination, America hating, Marxism, transgenderism. I mean, all the isms are attacking our society. And I firmly believe that not only China, but Russia and others are behind the whole thing.
Oh, I believe it. I believe
it's the communist. It's the communist agenda: delay, distract, disorient, confuse, divide. You know,
we're being destroyed from within, and people are just asleep at the wheel.
It's one tentacle of the beast.
Sorry. Go ahead.
What'd you say? I was just saying it's one tentacle of the beast that it's all, you know, it's all coming from the same beast.
One of many tentacles. And you know, we talked about last time how America is the last standing. We're the last stands but between world communism and freedom. And so it has been a multi-decade attempt to just, like I said, the multi-tentacles, multi-prong, however you want to say it, of taking us out one step at a time. And you know what? They're patient. They've been doing this for decades now. And to me, it's very well orchestrated. One by one, little by little, they're coming in to destroy our civilization. And we need to protect it. And so anyway.
So how do you respond? How do you think we should respond to the accusations of transphobic, abusive, you are not, you know, my family if you don't accept me? Those are the terms used by the pro-trans groups that, you know, they try to marginalize people who are standing in the gap and fighting against this horrendous agenda. How do you respond to that?
Well, so these words are being they were developed obviously by the activists, and they're being taught. If you the movie, the link for which I sent you, it would talk about how kids are being indoctrinated, and that is part of indoctrination. They meet in small groups, and as they share their problems, the girls that are being transformed, they're being taught words like, well, that's transphobic if you say that. Well, the translation of transphobic is fear of transgender people. Right? We're not dealing with real transgenders. We're dealing with social contagion. And therefore, to respond to this is how I would respond. It's not a textbook answer. But if somebody were to accuse me of being transphobic, I'm going to say, I'm not afraid of transgenders. I am hateful of activists that are mutilating our children, because that's what's really happening. We don't have, most of us don't have those prejudices of being fearful or a dislike for people that are transgender. We are hating on the activists that are doing such great harm to our children. So that's how I would answer. If you come up with a better answer, I would love to hear it. But yeah, but the kids are being taught words like your mom is being abusive if she doesn't support you. Or, well,
Right.
that's why you don't, that's why we are your family, because we love you. Your family, your biological family, your mom, forget her, you know. And so the kids are being turned against their own family. Well, what does that remind you of? Communist China, Venezuela, you know, you name it. That they pretty much turn the children against the family, either for political purposes. In this case, is to turn the kids away from the family so they can go ahead and be mutilated, harmed, destroyed by these activists.
Germany in the mid 1930s. That's how they indoctrinated the brown shirts, the children, and turned them against their parents, and created an army of snitchers, if you want to, and that's how they started rounding up the Jews,
Right.
started rounding up people who were against Hitler, and you know, and their own children were turning them in because they would hear conversation at home about, you know, how they didn't like Hitler or any of his agenda. And so these little brown shirts would go and report this, and the next thing you know, they're being arrested,
Right.
and hauled off to concentration camps,
Right.
And
or worse. Yeah.
Well, so I mean, and you got to think about it, like, who at the end of the day, who's the enemy of our souls, right? Satan. We have an enemy of our souls, and look at the overarching theme. It's, you know, the Bible says before the great and awesome day of the Lord, I'll send my prophet Elijah, and he'll restore the hearts of the fathers to the children of the fathers. So God is this, you know, he restores, he brings life. He says, you know, he created Adam and Eve, and he said, you know, male and female, I created them in my image, be fruitful and multiply. Well, the enemy wants to say, no, hate your family, hate your parents, hate your lineage, hate your heritage, but also don't have kids, don't get married, you know, get sterile. And it's absolutely an agenda coming. I mean, The Art of War, Sun Tzu, he says in it that one of the quotes in there is, win the war without fighting, without going to battle. And I mean, that's the communist way, is they don't even we're not even stepping on the battlefield. All they have to do is plant their toxic, destructive, divisive ideas in our system, which they've been doing for decades through our educational systems. I mean, it's always a target after the youth. It used to be just higher learning. Now it's in elementary school, but that's it. It's win the war without even stepping foot on the battlefield. Right. And that's what's going on.
And you do have people that are either ignorant or complicit in the education system. And you know, you know a little bit about my journey. Last 2 years on the board, I have been beaten up, kicked around, insulted, defamed, because I refuse to back off on presenting the truth about the indoctrination, whether it be the other indoctrination we talked about with the CRT, critical race theory, and the Marxist indoctrination. To this, I refuse to back off, and I have been beaten up. And you know what? Am I going to back off? No, because God called on me to present the truth about this to whoever would listen. And so, you know, Peter, you brought up a good point. You brought up God. That's the ultimate problem, is that one of the first things the enemies did to our country is they took God out of our schools, out of our institutions, out of our families. And this is the aftermath of 5, 6, 7 decades of godlessness. So I don't want to leave today talking about this horrific social situation without presenting answers. And I don't have the answers. The answer is go back to God. Families, parents, get off your phones, get off your devices, sit with your kids and talk to them. Find out what they're learning. Teach them God so that nothing can sway them. They would not be like feather in the wind. Get rid of the phones. Give them a flip phone if you have to call them. But get the kids, especially if you know you have girls with emotional problems or social problems, get them off of social media because they're constantly comparing. If you listen to Chloe Cole, who's one of the detransitioners, she was comparing herself to these beautiful girls her age, which then caused her to think, well, maybe I'm not a girl. Maybe I'm just so unattractive, and so on and so on. So that's the answer. We cannot walk away from this without having answers. Teach your kids coping mechanism. Teach the children who they are in Christ, who they are in God. And so when all these things come at them, they can just flick it away and learn how to defend it. But right now we have kids where the parents are not in their lives. Not all, but enough such that the kids are on their own. And so they become targets for all of this, for the enemies of our country. You know, whether it be communist China, Russia, it is the communists, whether it be communist China or Russia or whoever, they are coming after us in big ways. And if we don't open our eyes, this country is going to be gone, you know. And so we just have, I mean, it is our responsibility, every one of us, to talk to somebody every day, to talk to them about what's going on in the schools. And the school district that I was from were just beating me up so hard that, you know what are you hiding? I mean, there's one thing, it's one thing to have a difference of opinion about indoctrination or no indoctrination, but when you have to beat me up so badly and to get rid of me and gerrymander so I can run for the school board, what are you hiding? And I'm not backing up.
Yeah, that's the cancel culture.
So
That's it. I mean, you're in as long as you bow to the beast. And if you don't, you're out.
Yep.
And I mean, and I could go on about the issues in the church. You know, we're not faultless. The church has, you know, been extremely judgmental and critical. And I would, you know, a topic for another day. You know, things in dysfunction and toxic theology that has plagued the church for so long that, you know, makes people feel extremely judged and uncomfortable. I mean, I just saw something on Google. It says kids are safer at drag shows than at church. Although that's a terrible lie. Most churches are very loving and welcoming today, but they haven't always been. And there are a lot of just go on YouTube for a minute and look at all the fearful, critical, hate, fear-mongering Christians on social media that are just throwing judge every which way. And it's like, you know, we need as the church to provide a safe, loving, non-judgmental, non-critical, you know, environment for people. But that's my point being is that people are looking for belonging. Satan exploits that. Satan will always exploit pain. And he gets in and like you said, it's, you know, come over to the dark side. Things are better over here. Well, that's what you'll see in these testimonies, in these documentaries. It's like, my depression didn't go away. My problems didn't go away. They only got worse. And
only got worse.
Know, now I've got like the scars to prove it. And so it's like the same thing. Once you get in that ideology, it's all open arms as long as you agree with everything they say. But the minute you cross them, and that's, you know, that you're out, you're canceled. So,
Well, I mean, I am critical of conservatives who rather just keep quiet and turn away and not confront the problems. Well, guess what? Just like the brown shirts, you know, you mentioned Hugo, the brown shirts ended up in those cattle carts to the gas chambers.
Yep.
If you don't get involved, you're going to be part of the gas chamber, whatever the equivalent that's going to be in our society. We have enemies. You know, it's interesting. When I took my military oath, it was not just to defend foreign enemies, it's foreign and domestic. And I always wonder why. At the time, I was so naive. Well, now I know very much why. And we are probably under more threat from our domestic enemies than we are from our foreign enemies at this point. And we just need more. I mean, if you two can make it a campaign from here on, a crusade to educate people that you cannot just shut your door and hide out anymore. If this is your country, fight for it. These are your children, fight for it, or else we won't have one anymore. And before we'll have world domination by communism.
One of the things that I've had an opportunity to do on occasion when I've been with media types that are far left, I always pose this one little tidbit to them, and they're flabbergasted when I say it. I said, you know, all this leftism, Marxism, and everything that you're pushing,
Mm-hmm.
he says, guess who the first ones that are going to be jailed are when they take over?
Yeah.
You,
Yeah.
the press, the
Right.
media. They're the first ones to go because they don't want anybody reporting truth or facts. They want their agenda, their propaganda pushed 100%. So it's ironic that these people are so adamant and oppose the far right,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so badly, and they're sitting there in bed with these Marxists, literal Marxists. I don't care what people say. They can
Yeah.
call me extremist for saying it. These people are Marxists. There's
Mm-hmm.
no question in my mind. This is the destruction of America from within. Mark Levin points it out very well in some of his recent books. His latest book is called "Why Does the Democrat Party Hate America?"
Mm.
And because it's no longer the Democrat Party.
Right. You're right.
It
Not
is
K-Days and Eisenhower. And, yeah, you're right.
it is the Marxist Party,
Mm-hmm.
period.
Yep.
And anybody who thinks it's otherwise is just fooling themselves. So
Yep.
Well, that's why RFK got outed. I mean, he's the best Democrat I've seen in my lifetime, and or former Democrat, you know, and he got ousted because he stands for freedom and liberty, and you know,
That's right.
he's been silenced and hushed and put out. You know, now he's independent, but
Right.
that's kind
But
of
and also before we go, I want to give a shout out to there are moms groups that are, and it should not be just moms group, but Peter, you fix that. But there's a moms group called Moms for America. It is a
yes,
20-year-old something group that has been doing amazing things in terms of educating the public, just opening the eyes of the public about what's going on in this country. And I love them because they have no problem calling leftists. They don't try to be, you know, sugarcoating or super tactful to the point where we're not speaking the truth. So the link I gave you, I don't know if you can post it on your website. I gave you a link
yes.
to a movie that was done by Moms for America in conjunction with Epoch Times, and
Yep.
it is pronounced Epoch, not Epic. I found out, and that's impressive, right? I mean, for Epoch Times to come in and do a movie. The movie is called Gender Confusion, and it is a little bit long on the long side. But what I do is I listen to it. I put on my earphones and I'm driving. I'm listening to it. I'm not watching the movie itself, but I'm getting all the information. It is called Gender Confusion. I posted it to my Facebook. Every parent needs to look at this, and any American citizen needs to watch this film so they know what is going on with their kids, and they are hard after our kids. So
There's nothing. Look, it's appropriate, I think, that it's called Moms for America because there's nothing more fierce than a mama bear.
oh
And
yeah,
a
that's
mama
right.
bear will get on their hind legs and be the first ones, the first line of defense if anybody's coming after their children. So
Right.
I think it's appropriate. Yes, fathers are definitely involved and part, you know, they're a part of the picture, but moms can be the first line of defense because they are the most fierce when it comes to their children. And so
That's right.
I
Yeah.
think that that's a group that I'm definitely going to be looking at very closely and promoting. And hopefully, I may even, you know, hopefully I have some opportunity to get some folks from that organization to come on the show, and that's a topic that we can promote with full cooperation, and I'll see if we can get permission to post that.
Oh, you have permission. You have permission to post it, and in fact, I am actually the newly appointed state liaison for Moms for America for Colorado, and
all right.
I don't take on titles. You know, I don't like titles actually because I think it actually detracts from your work. Because once you have a title, then you have to behave. But I took it on because of the resources and the amazing work they have done over 20 years, and so I have accepted that title, and just happened this week. And I am going to be just fully empowered to do even more than I've been able to as an individual. But know that I am bringing people along. I am dragging, kicking and screaming to help me join this fight, because you know what? We don't have a choice. We are at the precipice, if not beyond. We have to fight. And if I have to drag you along, kicking and screaming, you're coming. And we're getting more and more people being aware and educated and informed about what's going on, and they are joining the fight. But I wanted this done yesterday, so I'm kind of impatient that way.
Now we have to fight for this topic. And what is it? What's going on in the schools as far as well, in your area, in your district? What happened with the recent election as far as the school board? How did it end up?
Okay, so all the big school districts in El Paso County won a supermajority.
Okay.
So D20 has 5-0, D11 has a 7-0, D3 has a 4-1. Woodland Park has either a 3-2 or 4-1. So they are set to do good things if they choose to, right? D49 that I was a part of, because of the really illegal, I call it illegal, they can come after me, with the gerrymandering, and then they actually interfered with my petition process when I moved legally so I can run. They actually interfered with my petition process. So they did everything. They jumped over backwards 3 times to make sure I'm not on the ballot. So I must really scare somebody. I don't know. But anyway, in D49, we currently have a 2-3 minority, where the one district that I should have run in ended up with an extreme leftist. And so, but you know what? It is not what I planned, but God has a different plan. And I know He's going to put me in a place where I can be front and center to fight all of this, and maybe without the restrictions of being a board member. So that's in God's hands. I'm just listening to Him.
2-year terms?
2. I'm sorry, 4. 4-year term.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's a blessing in disguise, Ivy. I totally get that sense. You said freedom to do it. It's kind of like Tucker Carlson, he had to leave Fox News in order to really start making a difference, because he had his hands undone. It's like you got handcuffs on when you're in certain organizations, right? You got to abide by certain rules. Now you're free, you're untethered, and now you can really do some damage.
Yeah. I plan to.
I always trust the plan. Sometimes it's not what we're looking for, what we want, but I always believe God is in control. So you just move on and fight on and figure out what it is God wants you to do. And I think you're on the right track. I believe we're going to see a movement rise up in this country that is going to be insurmountable, because the more we can get this word out. In fact, I'm going to call my daughter in Texas tomorrow and tell her to join Moms for America.
Yay!
Yeah, we will too. I'll get Esther to join.
But
local leaders, it's never, too much. So have her call and have her join. And actually, I was just talking to someone about this. We may try to bring something national, a national MFA event here in Colorado. So you'll be the first to know about it.
That'd be great. I'd love to participate. That would be
Hugo, on that note, let me may I say the end quote?
Yes, absolutely.
We don't need you guys finish up, but I'm going to look this thing up.
Okay.
Real quick.
So, moving forward, I want you to, keep us apprised of what's going on, anything that comes up. But I've been talking to some different people. I've been looking for investors for this show because I want this show to grow. And I want us to be effective in our mission, and our mission is to grow and to inform the Hispanic voter base about what their values are and what they're voting for. So I have a domain that I own called votelatinovalues.com.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I'm working to get a website built upon.
Okay.
Um, and I also just found out that there's an opportunity to purchase the domain called voteyourvalues.com.
Okay.
So I'm hopeful that I'm able to achieve that, and with
Mm-hmm.
that, we're going to build a movement to promote values among Hispanic voters, because that's really where it's at. And
Yeah.
you can sit down with a Hispanic voter at any time and have a conversation with them, and at the end of that conversation, you know where their values lie. So
Mm-hmm.
the obvious question is, why aren't you voting your values? And
Mm-hmm.
that should be the message that we put out for Hispanic voters, and it should be from everyone. Anytime you meet a Hispanic voter that is voting with Democrats, you need to talk to them and say, why?
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about your values, and then
Well, I
show
think,
that.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, what I want to do is create the contrast between the two platforms of the major parties,
Right.
and just show them the two platforms, and then say, okay, which platform do your values align with? And I
Mm-hmm.
will bet a dollar to a dime that any honest Hispanic is going to say that their values align with the Republican Party.
I think I
And
agree with you
so,
on that.
Well,
and then, and
and the
then with that in mind, the obvious question is, then why are you voting against your own values?
Yeah.
Well,
I
and
mean,
connecting to like the Hispanic community on this, most or many Hispanic parents, they send their kids to school. They're both busy working. They're expecting and trusting their schools to raise the kids up to where then their kids come home and they have this, oh, I've got this, ideal. I mean, there's a young Hispanic man on that DETRANS thing on PragerU who's,
Yep.
like they're so far removed from this. If
Mm-hmm.
you're an immigrant and you're sitting here dealing with this, you have no idea what's going on. You're just trusting your kids' educators. You're trusting your kids' doctors, and
Mm-hmm.
they need to understand. I mean, that's the point: is education, truth, bringing
Mm-hmm.
truth and light into this situation. And most Hispanic, parents, they're busy. They just have no idea what to do with this. And so
Well,
the
they're trying to make it
values
right.
of the
They're
family,
trying,
it's like,
yeah,
hey, look.
they're trying to make ends meet. And having been an immigrant where my parents didn't speak English, I mean, the school could have been indoctrinating me the whole time, and they wouldn't have known the difference, even if they did sit down with us to talk to us, because they have
Right.
no idea, right? But in my case, in my parents' case, my mom usually stayed home, but with 8 kids, and my dad worked 10, 12-hour days, there was no parenting. And I don't begrudge them for it at all. They were just trying to survive in a new country that they moved us into. And I think that's the same for many Hispanic families. I mean, I know that's the case in El Paso County, where many of the parents don't speak English. And so when something comes home, they have no idea, let alone, expecting them to sit down at the end of the day and talk to their kids about what they're learning. That's not going
right.
to happen. And of course, that's a cultural difference where a child that is being raised here want to be Americans, and they either push away their Hispanic culture, in my case, the Chinese culture. I don't want part of that. And so that separation adds to the language separation. And so, no, I mean, for you, Hugo, to want to have this goal of, reaching families, especially the non-English speaking ones, that is a huge audience there that needs to be addressed, because
Yeah.
they may not be voting because of lack of information, lack of understanding. And if we can change that, then we may change the picture, the overall picture, by a lot more.
Right.
Yep. I agree. And that's,
Once they know, once people know, like, no, this isn't true. Your
Mhm.
kid's not going to kill, once they know, like, hey, this isn't the way. There's alternatives to thinking, there's different ways of thinking than
Right.
whatever these, indoctrinators are trying to push on you. That's,
all right. Well,
again, you got to be vocal, speak truth.
Yeah.
it's been an eye opener tonight, and we're going to pursue this topic even further. So,
Well, let me
Okay.
just finish with this quote. Margaret Mead, speaking of mothers, and to to the organization, Mothers of America, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has.
Yeah.
Margaret Mead. So you keep
Be a
going,
catalyst.
Ivy.
Moms
Well,
for America.
Moms for America. Yeah.
There we go.
For having
thank
me.
you, Ivy, for coming on and speaking on this important topic, and we look forward to having you on some more.
And we'll put the links. We'll put the links to that Epoch Times documentary in the show notes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I send you the link. So, I mean, it needs to be watched by everyone. It's sad. In fact, the featured family in that movie is a Hispanic family. It's the same thing. They took advantage of the fact that the mom didn't understand the system, and they targeted her daughter. And
so we'll get it up on the website. So
it's very sad story. Yeah,
we'll have to. In fact, we'll probably do a little section for Moms for America on the website. So
okay,
I think
great.
that's an important organization that we need to support. So
Okay, all right. I'll send you the link.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you for coming on, Ivy. Have a good evening, and
you too.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas,
Ivy.
All right, bye.
The Lord bless and keep you.
You too. You too.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, we'll wrap it up here. So you want any final thoughts, Hugo?
Nope. Just stay strong, stay informed, and let's keep on fighting the good fight. So thank you all for tuning in tonight, and we look forward to another exciting show next week. Thank you. God bless
Good night,
America.
everybody. God bless you. God bless America and all of our children.